These are the subjects that I'm prepared to discuss, okay? And so the first two major bullets is what I wanted to cover today is what's in your marketing plan, what's having marketing and sales alignment. So I know some of you said that you've got some new marketing initiatives that you're embarking on. So how do you align your marketing and your sales programming? And then how does that align with what your corporate strategy is? And we're gonna take some deep dives into that. And then as leaders of the organization, what do you really need to be paying attention to if you're not directly the sales person? Okay, and then we're going to talk a little bit about roles. So who's going to do the sales activity, and or do you need to fill in some roles, and how do you determine what roles you want to fill in, maybe not now but in the future? Okay, and then and that's probably as far as what you need to track. I'm going to cover that today as well. That's probably as far as we'll get today. But you'll notice that's a lot. And I have at least three or four different assignments that I'm going to have you break off into your groups and work on. And I'll take turns being with you, depending on which exercise it is. So you'll get a opportunity to not just listen to me talk and impart my knowledge on you. You're going to, roll your sleeves up and get some of this done, or at least get started on it. Okay. But I encourage you to go ahead and ask questions because like I said, rather be talking about what you need now to make a difference, rather than what I've prepared if it's not really relevant. Okay. Any questions? Um, just so I know, are any of you looking to hire sales people now or in the near future?
We at Acme are actually actively looking for more repping companies, repping agencies.
Okay,
So we're in the process of looking at several different additional agencies. As
okay,
far as individual salespeople or anything like that, no, not any time in the near future.
okay, great, excellent. Okay, so I will spend some time then on that recruiting piece uh, uh, tomorrow, but really in the context of how do you look for the right distribution company or independent sales agency, and maybe a little bit on how to contract with them the right way. Um, and we'll, so I think will basically, um, it, well, why don't we basically get right into it, I think. Okay, so first, what I want to do is launch a poll here, um, and get a sense on some of the market challenges. Okay, so I'm going to launch poll number one and take a look at these and pick which of these are market challenges for you currently. Your markets are very competitive. I know some of you had mentioned that. Um, Customer buying patterns have commoditized the markets. We have too many markets to address, making it difficult to determine where we should spend our time and resources. Our prospects are geographically fragmented, making it difficult to make decisions on sales resources. In other words, should you hire direct sales reps or distributors or independent reps? Or you have a high penetration in the markets you're in and not sure how to expand to other markets? Or are there other market related challenges that you have? So go ahead and pick which ones you feel applies to you. Okay. Okay. So so basically 5 out of 7 competitive. Sometimes then when the markets are competitive, then what ends up happening, there some of your competitors are selling to price more and then making the product, your product or service, more commoditized. Um, for example, I have a client that does medical device manufacturing, and in they're in the pharmaceutical marketplace, but also medical device. And in the medical device business, it's a lot more mature, and it's particularly in the Midwest. Some of those bigger medical device manufacturers seem to have hired uh, procurement people from the automotive industry who tend to control things, be kind of controlling, and they actually have this portal where system where they ask for proposals through this online platform, and they send out the information that they think that these contract manufacturers need to produce a proposal, and they're pretty good at giving them the information they need, but the problem is that it's pretty complicated. I mean, they have to design equipment. They have to figure out, how what it's going to cost to get the material and staff the production and give them a proposal. And it's pretty complex. And they could spend up to $10,000 of their own engineering time just to respond to a complicated proposal. And why would they do that without even talking to anybody? They expect them to take this information and turn around a proposal without even having any kind of conversation to know what is the likelihood of their success. And so we basically put a stop to that. And they were playing games to the point where they're actually coming to them and saying, "Hey, you guys want to still do business with us? Drop your price 7%. We'll start talking about what we have for you this year." It was crazy how they were commoditizing a very complicated service that they provide. And so uh, you, you know, they still need to deal with these purchasing people, but they get so wrapped up in following through with that process that they forget that there's some very important engineering and product people and quality people that they need to be keeping in touch with to really determine where can they really add value to their customers. And just because there's some procurement process doesn't mean that that's not very important things they need to be doing with their time, and then also prospecting for new things that are further on down the pike, and to keep their pipeline full of those opportunities that are even potentially 3 years out for them. Okay. And so I think we're going to spend some time. I think so. 5 out of 7, you said that it's very competitive. We're going to spend some time today, this afternoon, really talking about, okay, what is your competitive advantage? Because in very mature markets, typically competitive environments come out of really mature markets. You're not the only one that can do what you do. And that doesn't mean that there aren't things that you do differently or better or uniquely. And we want to keep a pulse on, number one, what is really important to your customers, and what is it that you do better or differently that's important to them. Okay, so we're going to spend some time working through that, because not having those things is really also what's useful for you to get the attention of new potential customers. And this is information that we can take and employ in our marketing and on our prospecting strategies. Okay. Um, but I think getting through the commoditized part is just really paying attention to your sales process and taking the time on new opportunities to ask the right questions, and make sure that you're dealing with, number one, somebody who can make a decision, and secondly, you understand what are they going to do with your proposal once they get it. I have a new client that I'm starting with Wednesday of this week, and they are providing software to a marketplace where there, fortunately for them, has been some recent regulation that they can really facilitate to their potential customers. And these prospects, they think they have a solution, and a lot of them do, but they really can, they can help them to comply a lot better. And they have a company, outsourced company, that is scheduling webinars for them to present to their prospective customers every day. So they get at least one webinar booked every day. But they go in and they tell them, they show them their software, and 100% of the time, the response is the same. Wow, that's great. Now I have to take this information and bring it to fill in the blank, somebody else. And the problem is, number one, these people think they have a solution. They'd like to have a better one, but what needs to happen for them to buy it? They're not finding out. They're just they're just presenting. And so what we're going to be working on is making sure that before they get any presentation, that they, number one, ask the right questions to find out, once they present their solution, they know what those people are going to do with it. And number two, they're presenting it to somebody who can say yes, not somebody who can say, hey, I got to go talk to so and so. Okay. Um, all right, too many markets to address. We're going to spend some time on that as well. Um, you know, this is very common, particularly in contract manufacturing, where you have a lot of customers in a lot of different markets, but it's best to be a strong competitor in a market where you have a good amount of penetration and have a good amount of opportunity that you can leverage to get more and branch off. And so the real question is, where is your best opportunity now for growth, profitable growth, right? Mr. Pareto, have you ever heard of Mr. Pareto? Mr. Pareto was an Italian that found that 20% of his bean plants produced 80% of his beans. Pareto was a smart guy. And if you look at all of your existing customers and you rank them in in accordance to how profitable they are for you, what would you find your top?
Mm.
How many customers provide most of your revenue, most of your profit? I was with a company who was thinking about coming into this program, who decided not to, but they had been really for about 40% of their business died with COVID. I mean, just it'll come back, but right now no one is buying, and they're not gonna. It just it just died with COVID. So I sat down with the owner and I'm like, okay, how much not let's forget about getting back to where you were supposed to be last year. Let's talk about where do you need to be. And he has a really serious inflection point for profitability. So we said, okay, back to where you were, but then some. This is where you really need to be. Okay, how many customers do you need to have? So we took a look at what kind of customers he had, and we determined that he and his two salespeople really needed to get 44 new customers every year. And he said, I could do that. That's three apiece per, you know, the formula worked out that it was achievable. Okay. Then his wife walked by and he said, hey, how many deals did we do last year? 1,600. Okay. He and I were talking about getting 44 customers, yet he did 1,600 deals. Now, some of those were probably repeat business with good customers, but I got to believe there was a lot of lower value clients in there that take as much time as a really good client. And so, we want to spend some time today talking about who are those good clients. Let's go get some more of them. Okay. And unless you're proactive in addition to your reactive marketing, that may not happen. Okay. So we're going to talk about putting together a program so we can do that. Okay. Geographically fragmented. So now this is where, the reseller distributor strategy might be the best solution for that, and it's just a matter of really who you developing relationships with, or should you hire somebody that can represent you where the market is, and or is it such that there really aren't a lot of customers, there's not a lot of prospects. They just happen to be geographically located in different places where maybe you should be doing it, because today, I forget who, I think it was Bobby, mentioned that the world has changed. Everybody's used to doing things virtually. For me, it's opened up tremendous opportunities. I mean, I'm starting a program at the end of the month. One client is in North Carolina, and there's people in New Hampshire. There's people in Rhode Island. There's people in New York State, and people in California. Yeah, that now, not to say I wasn't working with people before that were in other locations, but for the most part, the companies were in New England and their salespeople were somewhere else. So I think that it really depends on your market, how many prospects are there, and is it best for you to handle some of it, or should you have somebody else? And if it's somebody else, then who is that? Okay. Okay, high penetration. So no one had that. There was one other challenge, and so what? Somebody said, one of you had said that you have other market challenges. Do you want to elaborate?
I believe that was me. So, we make specialty staples for different industries.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess part of it is what industry do we concentrate on, or which industry do we go after to grow that particular market, and how do we do that? So, when I talked about different industry challenges, we sell specialty staples to different industries.
Barbara,
Yeah.
this is Andrew. Do you segment your markets by uh, margin? So do you know them by their percent of total sales, and then their percentage of gross margin, and then their net margin dollars?
I'm going to defer to James on that because he's really been doing that, and I've just come back here in February. So James, if you wouldn't mind, if you're there.
Yes, I'm here. So our this sounds very, very old school, but our customers are very segmented in the sense of the type of staples that they buy, and we try to keep everyone, obviously everybody wants to make the most that they can from their product, but at the end of the day, we have to do what's right for the company in order for us to keep our doors open and pay the bills, and also continue to provide a quality product for our customers. But what we're experiencing huge challenges with, and I think Barbara may have alluded to this earlier, was labor. And so we can throw as much business as we want into the production schedule, but we don't have enough labor to execute. So that's where a huge part of our challenge is right now.
Are you looking at automation?
Not at the moment. Not at the moment. We are still very 20th century, I should say.
Yeah, so I don't know if I can help you with getting labor. That's not my thing. And
Yeah,
we're
connected. I think we're connected with your counterpart that is going to be working with Barbara on that as well.
That is correct. I'm working with Ivania.
Okay, good. But Barbara, that your concern really, I think it's similar or at least related to the let me go back to the many markets to address, right? Maybe you don't have a lot of markets, but the real question is where should you focus, whatever time you have, right?
That is correct.
Right? Yeah. Okay, so we'll get into that. I think that's pretty similar. All right. Now, thank you for sharing. Any questions, comments about the market challenges?
So Ken, this is Andrew. Well, the reason why I was asking Barbara that question is we've worked really hard at segmenting our primary markets.
Yep.
We have very distinct, we have different product lines that kind of primarily feed them. So I know my gross margin in those markets.
Yep.
And I know their percent of total sales. So I can come up with what's a net margin contributing margin. And for example, for us, building automation is our number three market, but it's our number 2 revenue, gross margin. So that's our low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Is to pull that one up. That one's going to take the least lift to get to the next, to really boost our revenue, our bottom. So
yeah.
I was asking you, Barbara, because if I'm thinking, as I think of staples, and I may be completely naive, you've got your educational markets, you've got, I think maybe your construction markets, if you're in that segment, you've got, and what is your margin in each of those markets? And then identifying, okay, where's number 3, or you get your 3, 4, 5 markets. Where's the one that's the smallest leap up to the next bottom line benefit, right?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. And actually, I have an exercise coming up very soon that is going to help them to get at that. Okay, so if you don't mind, I'm going to move on now to sales challenges. So I also have a poll here. I'm going to launch that and let's get into that. Okay, so in terms of sales challenges, here's the ones that I listed. Our sales activity is reactive and not proactive enough. We're receiving margin pricing pressure from customers and suppliers, too dependent on our largest customers, spend too much time with existing customers and not bringing in enough new, only tracking sales and pipeline and not prospecting and lead indicators. We're spending too much time with low value clients. Our sales team spends too much time with people who don't buy or they buy from someone else. In other words, their close rates are too low. Or we're too reliant on distributors, resellers, independent agents, or channel sales partners with limited control on results. Or we have a long sales cycle or other. Okay, so take some time and pick which ones you think apply to you. Okay, so let's see. 5 out of 7 said sales activity reactive and not proactive. So we're going to talk about what can you do to be proactive. That's a big part of what we're doing. And I'm taking a deeper dive into prospecting and sales process when I come to your office. That's what we will be doing. Okay, 5 out of 7 said margin and pricing pressure. That really will be dealt with when we talk about sales process. Okay, so again, in the individual sessions, we're going to take a deep dive into that. Too dependent on your largest customers, 4 out of 7. So if we get more proactive, we ought to be able to deal with that one. Too much time with existing customers, not bringing up new, 2 out of 7. That's good. That's only a couple, but we will deal with that as well. Tracking, we're going to spend some time on that, and we can spend more time when I come to your individual sessions. Nobody's spending time with low value clients. That's good. And wasting time with people who don't buy. Okay, so nobody has that challenge either. And then relying on sales agents, 4 out of 7. Long sales cycle, 3 out of 7. Okay, so when we get it, well, like I said, tomorrow we're going to spend some time on picking independent agents and resellers and what goes into that, and we can spend more time on how to potentially make the ones you already have more productive. And then long sales cycle, I hear this a lot, and when you think about the medical device client I mentioned, that's a long sales cycle. In fact, in the pharmaceutical markets, some of the customers they're talking with who actually need to know what it's going to cost to produce and assemble their products and ship their products for them, they need to know that before they even get FDA approval. So they're working on things that will take 3 years before they can even sell it. Okay, that's a long sales cycle, but it's because of the nature of the business. I have another client that makes biodegradable resins for packaging, and they have to formulate this resin for the application. It's designed, custom designed. Then they have to try it out in the product in the production line, and then they tweak it and they try it out again. That's a long sales cycle just because of the nature of the development. Okay, but when there's a long sales cycle because you first talked to somebody and they weren't ready to buy, well, that the question is, why aren't they ready to buy? And number two, will they ever be ready to buy? What needs to happen for them to be able to buy? So, you know, the fact of the matter is, um, if they don't tell you a problem that they want to solve, they don't have a reason to change providers. That's not a reason to say, hey, we have a long sales cycle. That is a problem in that you're dealing with somebody that has no reason to change what they're doing, unless you can find a reason for them to change what they're doing. And then if you find out that there is a reason for them to change what they're doing, but it's not for 4 months, 5 months, 2 years, well, when you get back engaged with them 2 years from now and they're ready to buy, that could be a very short sales cycle. Okay, so the real question is, are you finding opportunities where somebody has a reason to change? And if you are, then that's just in itself an opportunity to shorten your sales cycle. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. That gives me some focus on where we should really um, spend some time. Okay, so let's see, what time is it? 2 o'clock. Do we need a break? Should we take a 5 minute break?
I'd be good with a 5. Yep.
Okay, let's take a 5 minute break. It's 2:10. Come back at 2:15, and I'm going to get into marketing and prospecting.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Mhm. Unmute. All right, there we go. All right, can you all hear me?
Yes.
All right, good. Okay,
Yes.
I want to talk about marketing, prospecting, and sales. But these aren't the same things. They're very closely related. They're interrelated now, and there's been a lot of change in the marketing and sales arena, and mostly due to technology. But marketing is really generating awareness. It's what you do with awareness that's important. And what we want to talk about today is really understanding, and this is what Andrew was talking about, segmenting your markets or understanding where is your best opportunities and who are those targets, and then what is your competitive advantage within those markets. Are you able to differentiate yourself in a way that you can get people's attention with, you know, how you can help them, and it is perceived as something that's unique or at least something they should pay attention to. Okay. And then how can you put those messages in places where you're generating leads? Okay. And so that's something that we're going to work on today. Prospecting is proactively working channels to get your prospects to the point where they are sitting down and talking with you, for the purpose of seeing if they want to become a customer. Okay. Selling doesn't start until that's happened. And a lot of times that people's prospecting and marketing activity is selling prematurely. And sales really starts when you have a prospect that's there in front of you virtually or in person to determine if they want to buy. Okay. So these things are not the same. Selling starts when you have that customer there, and then you start the sales process. But this whole marketing and prospecting dynamic has changed considerably. When I got my first full-time professional sales job, nobody had a computer. In fact, Google wasn't formed for 13 years later. Okay, there was no internet. So it was easy for me to get somebody on the phone because that's how people got their information. Today, we all are programmed to do our own research because of the internet, because of social media, because of marketing automation, and the information that is available to us at our fingertips. And what that means is that by the time somebody gets close to a buying decision, then they may be less likely to buy from you because they've made decisions already. When the corporate executive board did their research for the Challenger Sale book, Challenger Sales, they did a lot of interviews of 1,460 executives. And they determined, one of the things they determined was that 57% of the buying decisions made before the salesperson gets involved. They've made decisions about what they want, what you can provide potentially, and what your competitors can provide. So if you catch them down here when they're searching for alternatives, a lot of times, according to the Aberdeen Group, that's a 16% close rate. Okay, this is where they send you an RFP, right? So maybe you at this point have done business with them before, but and in which case maybe you have a higher probability of success. But I've worked with, for example, I mean, this is what the medical device manufacturers' customers were doing to them. They were basically sending them a request for a quote in a process where they had 100% control. I've worked with architects, for example, where their customers send them not even a request for a quote, it's a request for qualifications. And then they send them this, large volume of information, hoping that they get invited to what they call the short list, in which case then they are invited to do a presentation. And they usually line them up in the same day. So they're walking in and they see their competitors walking out, and they get 45 minutes to talk to a group of people, some of which they potentially met before, some of them they haven't. And then they have to give them a pitch, hoping that they get invited to do a price proposal. Now, who's in control of that process? They have no control. So, what you want to do is be talking to your potential customers before they get into this process. And then you can find out how close you are to making a sale and how competitive it is. I used to sell energy performance contracting services. And whenever we got a government job to go after, they would do this. They would send in a request for quotes, for proposals, and then we would be out there doing a lot of due diligence, doing engineering analysis and hiring and asking contractors for quotes, spending a good deal of time over a 2-3 month period. And my job was to be talking to the decision makers and finding out exactly what they really wanted, even though they told us, oh, we can't talk to anybody. Well, we're going to spend a lot of time trying to figure this deal out. And my job was to determine, is this our job or not? Or, is it between us and one other customer? Is it worth our time? And so you're better off. The other problem with getting involved down here is that a lot of times they've tagged a lower level person to go out and do the searching. And so you're likely not to be then talking to somebody who could actually say yes. Okay. So when you talk about your marketing plans, these are elements that need to be in there. Who are your targets? Who are they? And what exactly do they want? And then perfect a dialogue that will get their attention and that it differentiates you from your competitors. And then have ways to deliver those messages when they want it, and then have an action plan to regularly engage with that market with those messages. Okay. So the first question is, who is it? Because if you're in a lot of different varied markets, then you really don't know where to spend most of your time and your resources. And we're all small businesses here. We don't have Geico's marketing budget, right? Can you imagine having Geico's marketing budget? Then it wouldn't matter, right? They're all over the place. And I'm sure that works for them. But you and I, we don't have a lot of resources to spread around. We need to know that we're going to get a return on our investment. And so the first step is to figure out who is it that we're going after, okay? So this speaks to really what Andrew was talking about, right, Andrew? Is segmenting your markets, right? And so what I want to do is pull out did everybody get the handout?
Yep. Hey,
Okay.
Ken, I just wanted to say that's really, really salient, because for us, we're trying to figure out how to position our new product and move around that distributor wall, right?
Yes.
And so we're working on market intelligence. We're working on, really understanding all of those components, because right now it's blind. You can't see over the wall. So,
Okay, but you know what market it is, right?
oh, absolutely.
Okay, and so for you, it's and do you have a list of who all your targets are in that market?
Based on our end customers that we know are in the market, and they're large, right? So
Yeah.
so we're working off of that and reverse engineering what our market is on the other side of the wall.
Yeah. And how many of them are there? How many prospective customers are there? Is there
It's
a lot?
global. It's global. It's massive. Yeah, it's massive.
Okay. Yeah. Um, yeah. So then you might want to just consider geographically where, I mean, do you have a high penetration in the United States already?
Yeah, that's where we're starting with, and also the distributors
Okay.
are international. They do have international, so we don't see them once they cross the border until we get an inquiry for something from United Arab Emirates, and we know it's our product. But we're focusing North America first.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense. And then you can be selective on using distributors or independent agents for the international market.
Okay.
That makes a lot of sense for you. I think that now uh, your and is this in which market is it that you're looking to
So
focus on?
so it's um we have four primary markets. So just quickly, one's renewable energy.
Yep.
Two is environmental research and science. Three is building automation. Four is cranes and fountains and things like that. So the segment we're really focusing on is number three, which is building automation, which is our number two in gross margin, but number three in net margin. Right?
Okay.
So we're
And
trying to pull that one up to number two.
can you get plugged into the building automation suppliers?
What we're doing is we're trying to be we're working on getting spec'd in. So I'll just lay it out there: Johnson Controls, Siemens,
Yeah.
Schneider Electric, Honeywell.
No, I know. I sold for York International.
Yeah.
Johnson Controls owns them now.
Yep.
Yeah.
So once it's, and we know we sell to them through distribution.
But can you get plugged into their offering?
That's what we're trying to do.
Okay. Well, then that's a small world. Because when I was selling, there was 3 companies
right.
that we competed with 2.
Right.
And there's not a lot of players there. If that's what you want to do, it's going to be a smaller margin. But the other, what we used to do on my end, because I was a salesperson for York International, all I did was focus on the Massachusetts marketplace, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And we were babysitting engineers to get spec'd.
Yep.
And then we would go to the contractors when the job got bought out and try to sell it to them. Okay. But we had a team of 4 people that were doing that in Boston. So that's a big sales network. Okay.
Yeah.
So to get spec'd, when you talk about getting spec'd, that's quite an extensive marketplace of engineers and contractors versus if you want to get spec'd in to a product and be an integral part of Johnson Controls offering, that's a small world. You see what I'm saying?
Yep, that's a good point. And but what we do know is they're trying to get over the wall to us through the distribution wall to us. So there's still a great deal of intelligence required to understand what are they looking for. They're looking for specific applications, or are they looking for really the deepest, embed us within their systems. The new product is going to be very ripe for embedding. So that's how we're looking at getting the spec in. We're learning.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'd have to. All right, well let's
think
do. You want to think about though? Can you give those control companies a competitive advantage? And
Yeah, yeah,
and then that's really what you're offering them,
yeah.
uh, rather than okay, you're a HVAC engineer, or you are a controls engineer, or you're just a building owner. Like, who is it? See, this is what I mean by that value proposition, which is the next exercise, not this one.
Mhm.
Um, it really depends on who you're talking to,
Sure.
what that unique selling proposition is. But let's, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break people up into groups, and I want you to um, look at that first exercise, okay? And I want you to pick one market that you want to address, okay? So for in Andrew's case, it's the building automation marketplace, but really, is it selling to the building automation controls manufacturers, or is it selling to building owners or contractors or developers? So that, that's the real question. I'm
Mhm.
not looking for you to tell me I'm looking to sell into the building automations control market. I'm saying, who is your target audience? Because those all could be targets for you. Okay. So it could be, how do you segment that? Now, is it an industry subcategory? All right, would be building automation controls, but you can further segment that by, let's say, okay, universities and colleges, or this is office buildings, or it's laboratories because they have to have better control. And, I'm not saying that you want to segment it that way. I'm just saying these are some places that you can look to sub segment your marketplace.
Yeah.
It could be how they're using your products. Okay. So there may be some applications or there that lends itself to knowing the environmental conditions more so than others. So, if you have a lot of outside air coming in, or if you have some processes inside the building that are more sensitive to that, humidity control, for example, you have to have very sensitive humidity conditions. Okay, geographic location. So let's say, primarily you're looking your biggest value add is where there's a lot of air conditioning requirements. Well, okay, then you probably be better off being on the southern part of the United States more than the northern part of the United States, for example, perhaps. Um, or maybe it's the product or service that they provide, okay? Or maybe it's the size of the company in employees or in revenue or other factors, okay? So in a B2B environment, is anybody in a B2C environment? Nobody's really selling to consumers, right? You're all in B2B?
Yes.
Okay. So what I want you to do, I'm going to put you in your Zoom rooms and I'm going to go in with Barbara and Bobby and James because you guys were really talking about this. I think, I don't know if it was Barbara or Bobby that brought this up, but so you've got this list on your thing. So I'm going to open up the rooms and let's see. Okay. Um, All right, so I've got room one is Amos, David, and James Shipley. Room two is Barbara, Bobby, and James. Room three is Tim. Room four is Bill and Linda. And who am I missing? Um,
Me.
and Andrew, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and so I'm going to put Andrew
In the
and
corner.
room
I've
five.
heard that before.
Okay, all right, so I'm opening all the rooms and just come back when you're done with the assignment. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to work on this.
it would be our specialty staple distributors, right?
Yeah. But here's where the challenge is for that. When we consider specialty staples, we're looking and talking about much smaller volume.
Exactly. Exactly right.
So we'd literally have to find a distributor that focus just on that. And there's just not, they're not out there. I mean, you've got your Stata houses that
Right.
have the occasional specialty request, but for the most part, the specialty stuff is just, it's all over the place. That's
It is.
out, obviously we'd love to be able to get that piece of business all the time, every time, but because it's the most margin for us.
Right.
But
Okay,
I
so
think,
most of your business goes through distributors. Is that correct?
It does, Ken. And
Yeah.
we have two lines of products that we really have separate from each other. We sell a line of wire and cable tackers that we import and we make the staples for. But the line that we try to push the most is our specialty staple line, which is very much of a niche market. We're trying to sell common staples made out of uncommon materials a lot of the times. And we're trying to sell to people who are used to paying low prices for imports, which is really what our challenge is.
Yeah. Okay. And are there specialty customers that are more profitable than others?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And what are the applications where you're having the most volume and profit?
Well, I think, James, and you could disagree with me, but I think it's aluminum and that type of product to the Northwest and to Canada.
yes, that's true.
Okay. And but they're when you say aluminum, is it aluminum staples or
Yes.
is it aluminum? Okay.
Yep, aluminum staples. Exactly right.
Right, but there's a lot of different applications for it, is there not?
There are, but the most common theme that we sell to is lumber and that, those types of distributors. They're selling to lumber yards, lumber houses.
So are they fencing staples, Bobby?
They're not. They're more fine wire than fencing staples.
Okay.
So a lot of times lumber can't use galvanized steel because it nicks up their blades. It does a rough job on their equipment. So that's when they come looking for aluminum, and it's pretty profitable. I mean, we have a pretty good source for aluminum wire, and we can get pretty good margins for that, where we can't with regular typical galvanized stuff. The stuff that's flooding the market.
Okay, so lumber yards, but also wood fabrication, right?
Definitely.
So the first thing I thought of is, let's say I want to go to, a lumber yard and I want to get a lattice to go underneath my deck.
Mhm.
Those things are stapled together,
Yep.
right? And
Right.
whoever's making those needs a staple.
Yep.
Okay. And so that is an area where you can focus, right? Lumber yards, however, I think that you could easily find out, where those lumber yards are, how many of them are there. And I'm not sure there's any geographic density because they're
There is
everywhere.
actually, believe it or not, they're focused in the Northwest a lot and in Western Canada, believe it or not. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another challenge that we have, Ken, is there's a fine line between lumber, I would say, manufacturers and lumber yards, in the sense that some of those where we could actually sell to lumber yards that maybe are putting together or fabricating items, and we would also sell to lumber companies or lumber fabricators where they're processing the wood or a mill, a lumber mill, and they would also sell to those lumber yards. So there's, it's tough for us to kind of navigate. So we have to find, like, veins and channels of business that isn't being touched on by some of our distributors already.
Right.
Because it's happened to me a few times where a customer reaches out and the product is very familiar or very similar to something we're already selling to one of our distributors. And it just takes a phone call. Obviously, if you're paying attention to your business, you can kind of pick up on stuff. But when something like that arises, we try to, but it doesn't always happen. We've crossed swords a couple of times, and it could get hairy, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
So you mean, when that happens, then do you make an introduction to one of your distributors?
Usually, yes.
Okay. And then why would that get hairy then?
Well, it's happened to where we've had a customer say, "Oh no, this is a new project for us." They kind of put us in the weeds so that we don't know who they're purchasing from. And then after talking and negotiating, we kind of figure, okay, these guys are buying from either one of our competitors or another distributor that's buying from us, because where did they get a particular staple, or where did they get that particular information from if it's a new job? And so they come with a very specific interest. And so that's kind of my reason for kind of treading water sometimes a little lightly with some of these guys, because a lot of times it's just either a larger end user that's trying to break off from a distributor, or it's a smaller distributor that's trying to get away from someone that's already buying from us, which it's a little tricky to kind of navigate through that. Seeing how we're a manufacturer, we're not really a distributor.
I have a question, and maybe it's a because I'm not in sales, so I'm looking at it going backwards, and I'm assuming that most of the lumber that requires it goes to the large box stores and the large lumber yard is requiring the aluminum staples in their products, or if they're not, they should be. Why couldn't we go backwards and start off with where the product is ending up, and maybe force those people to tell these people that they have to use aluminum staples and the benefits of it? Just a question.
Are you asking me that question?
Well, the distributors should be doing that.
Yeah, our distributors normally are the ones that are supposed to be pulling that business through for us.
Right.
And we're set up in a unique way, and we've got 5 repping agencies right now that are focusing on all of our telephone and communications customers. So like your AT&Ts and your Bells and stuff like that, Verizons. And those guys, they focus heavily on that, so they say. And so you've got that piece of the business that is very commonplace staples that are using those for cables and wires. And then we've got a large segment that we're trying to break back into, and that's the electric supplier. So we're currently actively looking for repping agencies that can represent us in that field.
Okay, and that would be to the companies that sell to contractors, right? Where the contractors go to get their materials.
Right.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
So supply houses, yes.
Yeah. Yep.
And
okay.
So then, and then of course and then you've got the specialty staple realm where there's definitely, like we've mentioned, there's more margin in it, and but it's, it's pocketed. There's very small pockets here and there, and it's kind of concentrated, like Bobby said, up in the Northwest. Unfortunately, we don't have a large representation out there, so a lot of that has to be done via telephone or emails and stuff like that. So,
Okay, so I think those are three markets, some of which you're stronger in already, and unless you have a good reason to go outside of that, I wouldn't recommend it, because that for the three of you, that's plenty.
Right, right.
oh,
You
it's
More
so
than you
give
know.
give you an idea. So, we're all one-arm paper drywall hangers at
yeah,
Acme.
yeah.
So we're
Sure.
very busy all day, every day, and I think we've mentioned this at least once. We struggle with production a lot. We can always improve on sales. Obviously, I've been in sales for over 20 years, 25 years, and I'm learning. I keep learning, and I mean, obviously, I want to learn more. That's why I'm here. So, at the end of the day, I anything new school, old school, whatever I can get my hands on, I try to absorb it and learn. So I think that we can take away. I think our takeaway from this would be definitely some redirect and kind of help us refocus on what's important. And the two segments that I spoke of, where we've got those repping agencies, it's kind of like residual business. As long as we keep those guys happy and fed, the customers, then they keep sending orders.
You mean
And
the two being the telecom and electrical supplier?
correct,
Okay,
correct.
but you also need more coverage in the electrical
Yeah,
supplier market.
yeah,
Okay,
yes, and
so
we're working on that. And then also, we wanna grow into some different realms, but in some different areas as well. But we've got to you know focus on what we've got and try to perfect it, I think.
I totally agree, 100%. And tomorrow, like I said, we're going to spend some time talking about how can you look for other reps. What uh, what is that criteria through which you want to select, and then we can also spend some time talking about how to improve those relationships, because it sounds like that there could be better communication about who their customers are, what customers that maybe you can bring to them, and how you manage their territory. And when I mean their territory, I mean what accounts are they handling? What are they managing? What is the market opportunity in the area where they operate? And how can you guys work together for joint marketing, joint prospecting, and get more business for both of you? And it starts with having open lines of communication, not like, hey, you know what, I'm trying to do an end run around who and who. No, that's not a good
So,
relationship.
I think I mentioned also that I'm new to Acme Staple, and
Yeah.
these guys, our repping agencies, they've been with Acme for many years, and so dealing with these guys, they're kind of, they kind of treating me like the newbie, and oh, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. But if I was able to ride with these guys, even some of the local guys to me in Texas, we could learn some stuff from each other, because I've been
Yeah.
in, like I said, I've been in sales for 25 years, and I'm not I haven't gotten to where I'm at because I didn't do a good job at at what I do. Like it's just a little frustrating with these guys who call them, and they're old timers, you know, they know it all, and they just kind of talk to you like, yeah, okay, yeah, whatever, and just kind of brush you off. But at the same time, when they don't get their money on time, they're squawking. So
Well,
hey,
yeah,
all of a sudden, where's James? I need to talk to him. Or where's Barbara? So it's a cat and mouse with these guys sometimes, I feel. And I push on them at least once or twice a week sometimes, and I never get oh yeah, I'm working on these guys. They're like, oh yeah, everything's okay. And they don't return calls, or they don't answer calls, and then they'll send me a text, and it's just very disconnected. So there's about 2 reps out of that batch that we have that we're looking probably to replace. And so I hope to take away a lot of good information tomorrow because one of my predecessors still works with us on a consulting basis. So I call on him, but he's expensive, so I shouldn't call on him so much. It's what I was told. But when I need his help, he jumps in, and he's very resourceful. But he's very retired, and he's a good guy and everything. But he's very much still attached to all these guys that he's worked with for many, many years. Mm-hmm. And so he goes to bat for them a lot, and it's tough to kind of yank those guys out and kind of shed light. Hey, these guys are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. We need to get rid of them. And there's so you know what I mean. I'm getting where I'm getting at with this.
Yeah. I understand. Okay, great. I think you're right on track, though, as far as this part of the exercise of which markets you want to focus on, and we'll build from that. Okay, we will build from that. Okay, let me see if I can get these guys back and see how they're doing.
All right.
It's going to take a minute.
Okay.
All righty, stop sharing results. Okay, let's see. I'm going to go to the DCI folks. Are you guys there? I don't know if they got back yet. Okay. So let's go to Tim. Tim, how did you guys do? What did you pick for your markets?
So we have, for our wide format printing, the ones that really stand out: signage, advertising, the core products, textile, and CAD and technical printing.
Textile and CAD, did you say?
Yeah, engineering drawings, things of that nature is a big.
Those seem pretty broad. Now, can you further segment? Does it make sense to segment by geography, or more specific on the applications?
Yes. So when we looked at that, a couple of things when we look at the sort of the sub segments under here. First of all, in all of that, our customers are always looking for a digital print versus other types of technologies, subliminals and screen printing, things of that nature. So it's a digital print. The products themselves generally have to be at least 36 inches or larger, up to 10 feet. So we're not going to be printing the small things in that space. Most of our business is US based, about 95% of it. We do ship outside of the country. Normally that is for companies that have businesses outside of the country. So we work for them here, and their international presence is fairly small. So we ship out to them as well. But due to the cost of shipping, Really, it's a US-based business. Um, when you look at per area, per state, it really follows a population. I mean, California is big, New York, Texas, Florida, simply because they have large populations. And as a result, we do a lot of shipping to those locations. Um, Most of our customers are privately held organizations. About 80% of the business we do is with smaller businesses like ourselves to medium-sized businesses versus your stock market listed companies. Um, Most of them are also owned businesses versus franchises. We have done some work for smaller franchises, and it's very good work for us when we get it. It does have a longer sales cycle, but once you're into that cycle, you get a lot of very nice recurring business. And interestingly enough, when we looked at the profit versus nonprofits, about 70% for-profit businesses and about 30%, which sort of makes sense when you look at printing banners, posters, things of that nature. A lot of museums and schools and things of that nature are decent recurring clients in that space. One of the things that's pretty clear to us as we look at ourselves versus our competitors, we cover a lot compared to most typical wide format printers that stay in one space. So it does become a little difficult for us, for example, in the decor market, to look at just wallpaper. We've got a dozen competitors, that's all they do. And so it's more difficult for us to compete in that business if it's more of a transactional event versus something that requires design, a lot of handholding. So one of the things I think we are looking at doing is trying to narrow down our focus a bit. And really, as Andrew was saying earlier, really try to focus on those where we make, much higher margins. And so that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend doing some more work on that. And so I still think when you look at, all right, who might need a sign, for example,
Mhm.
And you say, well, even if you say, okay, who needs a sign in California, New York, Texas, or Florida?
Mhm.
Still too big a market for the three of you to address.
Right.
Just that.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you talk about franchises, I think you can segment within the franchise marketplace
Mhm.
and pick some that, and I'm not saying that's where you want to focus, but I'm just saying if you say, look, Ken, I want your help penetrating franchisees, franchisors. Franchisors, they're the ones that own the franchise, right? If you get a franchisor and you get plugged in, so every time they sell a franchise, they're buying your printing, okay? That I can help you address. I can help you market to them. I can help you produce leads to them. I can help you prospect to them. I can help you close deals with them. And we can put together a list in short order of who they are.
Yep.
And have a plan to go after them. But if you say, well, I want to get advertising, that's too broad.
Right.
It's, I want to get textile companies. Well, okay, maybe we can segment out that market, and but it's and I understand, and I understand you can address those markets, but where are you going to spend your time? Where, let's just say, okay, you have to put an ad someplace where the right decision makers' eyeballs are going to see it.
Mhm.
Based on signage, advertising, textiles, or CAD engineering, where are you going to put it? Right? We
Yep.
can't really make that decision. It's too broad, and there's too many prospects.
Right.
So I think that, so if you look at museums, okay, if you want to be the museum expert, sure, we can easily find out where all the museums are.
Right.
Now, they're not doing so great right now.
No.
Right.
So I'm not sure where that's where you want to focus.
We feel that.
Okay.
But
Then now,
Ken,
if you want to talk about schools, yeah, go ahead.
That Ken but now's the time to be building brand awareness.
Right.
For example, museums and Tim, I think of, trade show organizers, right? Because they want you to buy their suite of stuff. But isn't there a thought that there's a timing if you want to do brand awareness with your marketing? now is it, because they're all kind of sitting back.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
It is, but we want to generate brand awareness where people are sitting there. Where am I going to get this 36-inch sign?
Right. Yeah.
Not, oh, I hope someday I'm going to be able to buy a sign.
Right. Yeah.
True.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
right. And I get it. You know, you can produce signs for museums. I totally get that. But you know, you can't be everything to everybody, because then you don't have market penetration you can leverage, and you want to find out, okay, where's my best opportunity now? So what I would suggest is you take a look at your existing customers,
Mhm.
and you list, all right, who are my favorite customers
Mhm.
and why are they your favorite? Which ones are more profitable? Which ones love you? You know, in other words, you know, they are always coming to you. They appreciate what you're doing for them. They're not nickel and diming you every time that they have an opportunity for you. They basically, if you give them a fair price, they're going to buy it. Okay. And, you know, you love them, meaning what they need fits right into what you're really good at.
Yep.
Okay. And so look for those criteria, and let's try to segment it a little bit further. We can talk about it a little bit more. Okay.
Definitely. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. We have
Okay.
that typical small business problem where, you know, whoever calls, we can solve their problem. And we need to sort of get away from that a little bit,
Yeah.
because we
All
can't do
right.
everything for everybody.
All right. DCI, what'd you guys discuss? What markets are you going into? I know you're in colleges, universities, and military, and are you? I mean, you have every reason to stay there, right? Because I think there's a lot more business to be had there. Did you talk about any other markets?
We narrowed ours down to architects and designers within the college and university, military. We kind of targeted in on architects and designers. So we took that and we completed the rest of the questions based on that category.
I think that's a great strategy.
Okay.
Great strategy. Because if you can get spec'd by them, besides they're at the top of the food chain. Okay, they're the first ones in. All of the contractors are after the contractors, the subcontractors, the engineering companies. They're all chasing the architects because they're at the top of the food chain.
Right.
And if you find the ones that specialize in the markets you do, I had a client that was an architect. He specialized in food service for colleges and universities. He was known all up and down the East Coast for designing dining centers for colleges. Now, if I sold food, you know, display furniture, that's the guy. That's the guy I'd want to know, right? And so yeah, I think that's beautiful. Awesome, great strategy. Okay, how about the New England braiding folks? What'd you guys discuss?
We discussed getting further into the hydroelectric market.
Yeah. Okay. Now, is that robust now? Because I know they were dismantling some of them. Are
They're
they?
getting there's been a shift away from the large hydro facilities because of the impact on the environment and the local areas.
Mhm.
But there are a lot more smaller hydro being produced now.
Great. Excellent. And so I think, you know, there's obviously people that sell that equipment, the turbines, the water turbines and whatnot, and there's probably contractors. Maybe you're selling into the municipal electric generation market or independent power producer marketplace.
We also deal with OEMs as well.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. I think that's great. And you probably already have relationships there, I would think.
To a degree.
Yeah. Okay. So you can expand that easily with relate and then leverage relationships you already have. I think that's great. That's great. Okay, Andrew, what do you got?
So within the automation controls, we narrowed it to the industrial controls, safety and environmental, and municipal. There are three big buckets there. Because the pain point is automation during threshold events, heavy weather events. So all three of those, the industrial controls, that meaning it could be a petroleum refinery, if you have a rain event, safety, obviously, and environmental. So if you have an event which is going to cause a spill, and then we know we go to municipalities on stormwater controls.
Okay.
It's a lot of buckets there, but there's room for us, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I would say you could, yeah, I would definitely further segment that based on the severity of the problem.
Mhm.
And so when you say industrial, okay, that was broad, but when you say petroleum or refinery, that's a very manageable market,
Mhm.
right? Um, and safety environmental, okay, well, what are they managing? What are they handling? Um, and you know, and then municipal stormwater, maybe it's the size of the municipality, or where is there more, uh, tend where do they tend to have more overflow situations, or you know maybe it's not Southern California, which basically has less rain. Maybe it's more like Pacific Northwest where it rains every day. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Well, see, there's an awareness building in the market. So Texas, we have a fairly large penetration in Texas, or because it's flat, it rains, they flood. South Florida, it's flat, it rains, it flood. And so what's happening is the industry is becoming more educated. So we get a call from Ithaca, New York. We were at a conference and we want to be prepared in case we have a flood. So there's the industry's gaining knowledge that high intensity weather events occur and their systems are not prepared for them. So it actually is, Southern California, Palm Springs, there are lots of drainage ditches for what's going to come off the San Juan Jacinto Mountains if it ever happens, right? So they're prepared, but the likelihood is very slim.
Yeah.
The reality is we're finding that more and more municipalities are coming at us because they've learned of it somewhere else, happening
Yeah.
somewhere else.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Okay, good. I think that was a healthy exercise, and hopefully that got you thinking. Now, up to this point, like I say, we were talking about really who are you going after, and I would think that the first thing you're thinking about is, all right, who really needs what we have to sell, or more specifically, or even better, is who needs what we're really good at doing. Okay, and that's the internal analysis. The other half, the other part of your marketing strategy is what's happening externally. Okay, and these are the things that are happening in your markets and in your targets markets. Okay, so for example, technology is affecting everybody's business. Okay, so the mega print folks, like you said, everybody in your market, they want digital. Okay, well, 10 years ago, maybe that wasn't the case. 20 years ago, everybody was doing, big presses, and so, obviously, technology has had a big impact on the printing industry, and so I think that, um, you all have had some impact. I've already told you how technology's affected my industry in terms of marketing, automation, and social media and the internet. Okay, so you have to really pay attention to that, and where these external market forces, some will be opportunities for you, and others will be threats. Okay, how people buy, people's buying patterns. So, for example, what is a good example? Well, I guess a good example is the changes that the medical device company is going through in terms of how their customers are buying. And I guess one example. Let's talk about architects, for example. I have an architect that does business with K through 12 schools and in the municipal market. And in Massachusetts, they have the in the municipal marketplace, and in state purchasing, they have allowed for architects to they solicit for architects for house doctor accounts, they call it. And so what they do is they say, okay, this state agency, let's say schools, colleges, and universities, they need $400,000 worth of architectural work done, and it's a pain for them to say, okay, we need somebody to look at our roof. Now they put out an RFP for somebody to go look at their roof every single time they have a job like that. So what they do is they say, well, look, we're going to need architects that will do about $400,000 worth of business. So they do a qualification solicitation, and they pick 3 architects so that they could just plug them in whenever they need them. Okay, and so my architectural client basically is taking that whole concept to the municipal market and saying, hey, did you know it's kind of a pain for you to go out to bid every time you need somebody to look at the overhang in the entranceway to your school, or every time you need to replace the windows? And they're like, yeah, that's a pain every time we have to do that. Okay, well, did you know you could do a house doctor account? And so they're basically helping them with writing the RFP, and obviously, who's the favorite selection once they go out to bid for the house doctor account, right? And so they're plugging themselves in to basically get all that business, right? They educate them on that. So how people buy can be, a way, if you know how they prefer to buy, and then look for ways to find opportunities within that. Public perception. I think this COVID thing is really having an impact on the marketplace, let's say, for colleges and universities. And that public perception is still going to affect the market. Target customer groups is what we spent most of this time this afternoon talking about. Basic customer desires. The economy affects everybody's business. And then how many customers do you have already in those markets, and how many prospects are there? Okay, are there enough? Is there enough for you to grow with? I have a client that I just started with that sells batteries to movie cameras. The cameramen, the batteries that go on those cameras, and they have a much better product and have only about 25-30% of the market. That's a really great place to be, right? So they have a lot of opportunity, and it's a lot easier to be at 30% of the market and get more business than it is to be at 70% of the market and try to get more business. But you want to have enough prospects. and you don't want to have too many that you can't manage with a strategy. How competitive is it? And then is there any legal, regulatory? I mean, if you talk about renewable energy, for example, I think that there may be some governmental push, or there could be some adverse governmental things. So the software company I mentioned, for example, they have an opportunity because of regulations on how safety is reported within the markets they're in, which is transit and airports. And there's a regulation on how that gets reported, and they provide software that enables that. Okay, so the regulation is an opportunity for them. Okay, so you want to be paying attention to what's happening externally and where the opportunities are, as well as where the threats. Okay, and then do some research. And no, I think that in terms of you guys, Acme, whatever information you can get about what is happening in the marketplace in terms of, okay, where's the telecom construction projects going? Where are where is more of the electrical construction more robust versus other places, or construction in general? And so if you get a pulse on what's happening in the marketplace and who the major players are, then you can bring that to your distributors and your independent agents and say, look, or how much information do you get just from your previous business? And to have an expectation of what the market should be in the geographic areas that your resellers and independent agents are working, and work with them to set some mutual goals for penetration. And if they're open to working with you to try to capture more market share based on what you do know, that's a good relationship. And I really think that ideally, if you have a distributor and an independent agent, that there are some expectations on an annual basis that are set, mutual expectations in terms of business, and that you're working together to either meet that or exceed that. Because certainly if you're hiring a salesperson, you're doing that. You have an expectation on how much business you're going to get, and they're being measured based on that. So independence, I mean, you should work towards that kind of a relationship. Okay, but you always want to be looking for gaining information and bringing that information back to your company that will help you to set expectations for revenue and profit. And your customers are the first place to go. What are they seeing out there? And what do they really want and need, and how much and when? But there's a lot of government data that's available as well. Okay, so I think certainly, when you guys like DCI, you're in the military business, well, that's government information. It's public. Okay, and there's places you can go and get that information. I deal with community banks, and so I get an regular email from the Federal Reserve Bank. I don't read it every day, but you never know. There may be some valuable information about what's happening in the banking marketplace that will be good for me. I get local information from the Boston Business Journal. I read that newspaper. It gives me information on what's happening in the tech community. It gives me information on what's happening in the construction industry. and other markets that I'm not really in. So there you may find, I get some information, I get some emails. I'm on McKinsey's email list. I haven't really paid much attention to it. But there might be some uh, industry reports that from nonprofits or from consultancies that might give you some good information, market information that you can get. Industry magazines you might subscribe to. Do internet research. Go to people's websites periodically. If you are in a public marketplace, all public companies have to file regular quarterly reports and annual reports to the EDGAR database, the SEC. I don't think anybody's in um, in tech or venture-backed type industry marketplaces. So when people invest like that, they have to file a Form D to the SEC. Other salespeople. One of the things that I highly recommend is you look at who else is selling to the people that you want to sell to, and or your customers' salespeople. Okay, they know more about their industry and their business than certainly you do, and maybe some other people that that at those companies. There's business directories. Sometimes if you're sometimes the executives at your target customer audiences are invited to speak places. So you can find out what their forward-thinking plans are. And then there's the stuff you pay for, like a S&P or Thomson Reuters or other research locations, but that can get to be expensive. Okay, so making sure you're taking advantage of what free information is out there to really understand what is happening in the marketplace and where the opportunities are. Okay. Any questions about this? So the idea is now we're focusing. We're focused, we aim, we measure, and we adjust. Okay.
And Ken, this is Andrew. I'm sorry, I keep sort of jumping in here. I don't, can anyone speak to their experience using New Hampshire Procurement Technical Assistance Center and using the government bid sites? Because what I've been told is if you can follow bids and see who is bidding on the large federal bids. So if you want to be a sub to them, then you can reach out to them. And as you said, it's all public. Has anybody had any experience with that, positive or otherwise?
Yes, I use them, and they're very good, especially since it's free.
Mm-hmm.
They do offer some training on how to navigate just what you're talking about, the navigation of finding the SAM and understanding where the orders might be. And they help you set up some keywords, and it searches every day to show you where there may be RFQs out there waiting for you to quote on.
Okay.
If you're even thinking of it, I would suggest you do try it. If you don't like it, you can get back out. It does take a little work, but they're very good. As far as I'm concerned.
Dave Pease has us set up. Nothing's come through yet. And I'm curious specifically about being able to shadow the primes.
Yes. Yep. It does take some work, but if you work with them, they're super at helping you out and finding your stuff. Yep.
Okay, great.
Sounds like it's worthwhile. Okay, great. Let's take another break. Is 5 minutes enough? Do we need 10? I'm going to give you the 3:25. Okay.
Yeah.
3:25. Come back at 3:30, and we'll get into the messaging and the differentiation. Stop the recording.
You need to focus on. That's the tough one, I think.
Yeah, and so that's what we were talking about with DCI, and then the real question is, what is your competitive advantage? Okay, and so Andrew, if you really have a new category that you're producing, and this is something that is a a deal breaker. I mean, not deal breaker, but really innovative
Mhm.
and a game changer, you said. That's the
Yep,
words, game
yep,
changer. Well, then that's the opportunity, is it not?
yep,
The
yep,
opportunity is to build that awareness and then to create a create the buzz
yep,
around that so that it it creates an energy of its own.
yep.
Okay,
Mhm.
and that is the opportunity um, that you will need to focus on. Um, and I think first off, what you're doing is doing that market research to find out, is this the case? We think it's a game changer? Doesn't matter what you think, Andrew. What
Right.
matters is what your prospects think. Do they
Mhm.
agree with you?
Mhm.
And how much are they going to be lining up
Right,
to get it?
right.
Okay. And so I think if you have if you're having challenges on the biggest opportunities, take a look at what your competitive advantages are.
Okay, okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. And here's the thing is, if you whatever it looks like 3 years from now, I'm guessing it's something that's bigger than what you have now. Okay. And that means your sales have increased. What does that look like? Well, it's only as good as how much more profit you generated for your company. Okay. That's going to enable you to make more investment into your company, or maybe you pay off debt, or maybe you create more equity. All three, perhaps. Okay. And so these are part of what, some of the things we talked about, with Andrew is okay, building more assets in people. So he's doing less, building equity in his company. So the value's increased. Okay. That's what it looks like. And that's why you're doing this. Okay. So, um, you know, if you, whatever you need to do, bring in more people. Okay. You can always get more people. It doesn't matter how much you're going to pay them. Right. And I begin. I know it's not as easy as I make it out to be, but um, you know, um, I my girlfriend's son works for Google. He's got a job and he gets paid a lot, and they are hiring like 100, I don't know, 10,000 people in the near future. They plan to hire 10,000 people, and they're probably going to get away with it. Why? Because everybody wants to work there. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And they pay very well. So they're able to find people. Uh, all right. So I'm going to go through this really quickly, but I think that I had a poll for this, but I'm not going to exercise it. Some of the things as leaders that you need to pay attention to is taking the time to understand where your leads and your sales come from. You have to pay attention to that, because you need to keep doing what's working and stop doing what's not. And you need to be paying attention to that. Even if you're not doing the sales, you have someone else doing it. Understand your customer focus. We spent a lot of time talking about that. That means you're tracking the right things. Um, And, when it comes time to bring in more resources for either marketing or sales, that you consider what is it that you actually need somebody to do it. I'm going to spend a little time talking about that in the remaining time here. Okay, expecting distributors and agents and resellers to do it all. Now, you know you the Acme folks, you already have that distribution organization network built. Okay, so I'm not going to say you definitely need um, to dismantle that and start over. That's not what I'm talking about. But when you are starting out from scratch, I'm not sure that for that you want to be reliant just on distributors and independent agents. In your case, Acme, you probably just what you're doing. You want to take a look at who you have and maybe make some adjustments. Okay, so once you have it working, that's not such a bad strategy. But when you're first starting out, it could be a problem. Okay, and then hiring the wrong people, and this applies to distributors and agents. Just getting hitched with the wrong person, promoting the wrong person. This is common in sales. You take your top producer, make them a manager. Now you've taken them off the street, and what made them a good salesperson doesn't necessarily make them a good manager. Okay, have the right training, have the right expectations. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. And then, or have the right compensation or incentive programs, and or managing and coaching your team, or forgetting to exceed your customers' expectations, because that's first and foremost. If you're not exceeding your customers' expectations, then that needs to get fixed first, so that they keep coming back. Okay. Now, in terms of sales roles, it's really important before you decide, all right, who you're going to hire, is what is it that you expect them to do? Do you need somebody that's going to go out and find new customers and run through a sales process and close the deal? Okay, those are more expensive account executives, and it's harder work. But you've got to think through all the things that they're going to need to do to be successful, to really take a deeper dive into whether or not they are able to do it and with whom they're going to do it with. Okay, or is your bigger opportunity with existing customers and getting more business from them? That's an account manager. Or do you need somebody that can actually produce some leads? Maybe you just need a sort of a younger, higher energy person that, it has a hunter mentality, that can be out there producing some leads for you, and then helping your account executives be more efficient, because they're not spending tons of time trying to develop leads. They're in front of prospects closing deals. Or, like Andrew said, he's got an outsourced marketing company. Well, let's just say the engine starts producing and you get to the point where you've got a whole bunch of leads coming in. Do you just need somebody to qualify those leads, to manage those leads, and then qualify them for the account executives? So, to determine what you need, you have to take a look at where are your people spending their time now, and are they spending time prospecting? Maybe that's where you need help, or outsource. I have a guy that's doing emails for me, individual emails they're sending and producing leads for me. And I outsourced it, right? And it works. There's other people that I work with that do other kinds of, more other strategies to produce leads. And, they set up a platform and they produce leads for you. And so you can build that yourself. You can have somebody build it for you and then turn it over to you, or you can outsource it, have somebody else do it for you. Okay, either way. But or are they spending a lot of time following up on inbound leads, or are they, are you getting a lot of good quality leads? You need somebody that can really qualify them and increase your close rate, or do you need somebody who can, are you tired of talking to your existing customers and hearing them say, geez, I didn't know you do that? And there's a lot more opportunity within the existing accounts you have. Okay. So you have to take a look at, what percentage of time you're spending now, your people are spending now. And basically, if use the 80-20 rule, if they're spending 20% of their time on any activity, and they could be better off having somebody else do that for them, then maybe that's where you want to plug somebody in. And it could be somebody at a lower price point. Okay. And if it's a younger person that's going to be doing outbound sales development or inbound market response, you could, then try people out and see if they're maybe have potential to be outside reps. You develop them and train them. Okay, make sense? Questions? Last thing, we're going to spend more time on this. What to track? Does everybody use a CRM?
We're in the process of transitioning to new software after using this same old system for 20 something years. So we'll soon be using CRM.
Oh, good. Have you picked one?
We have. We're getting ready to go live with NetSuite.
NetSuite. Okay. And so is that a Microsoft product?
No, it's an Oracle product, Ken.
Oracle. Okay. All right. So Acme, that's NetSuite. Okay. And so you're underway, having it built out or developed?
Yeah, exactly. We're just transitioning. This is the month that we're transitioning from the antique to the new model.
Okay. All right. DCI, do you guys use the CRM?
We're evaluating Zoho right now.
Zoho. Okay. James, you said that?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I like Zoho. I used to use that. And Andrew, do you use the CRM?
Me. It's me.
Outlook.
That's it.
Outlook?
That's a gap.
Okay. Yeah, so you might want to look into, we can talk about that when I come up there. All right. How about Tim?
We're using HubSpot.
Use HubSpot. Okay. And the braiding folks use the CRM?
No, not currently.
Okay. Where do you keep your database?
In a variety of format, mostly Microsoft Access and some Excel spreadsheet.
Okay.
We have started looking into the CRM, but we have not made any decisions yet.
Okay. So there's two things, see, and that's why you need Access and you need Excel, because Excel you can track your projects and your proposals and all that and your ratios, your sales ratios, but Access is where you have to keep the contact information, right? You need both. And the problem is, does your system give you both? Okay. And my biggest bone of contention is that, all CRMs are great at tracking people and contact data, and maybe when you want to contact them again, or what you talked about the last time, they're all great at that, but they don't track the sales activity unless you set it up the right way. Okay, everybody knows if you made a sale, right? Because you have to invoice them. So it's in your financial software, right? You know how many sales you made monthly or weekly, and you know if you closed a deal. But can you easily tell me how many, what's your average deal size, right? So, if you set a goal uh, for, uh, I want to increase my sales $1 million this year, right? How many deals is that? It's based on what's your average customer value. Well, what is your average customer value? It's a simple ratio. What were your sales for this month? How many deals is that? Simple ratio. And are you tracking that on a continuous basis, weekly, monthly? Because if you're not hitting your monthly sales goal and you are closing the amount of deals you expect, well, then that's where the problem is. The deals are too small. But if you're not closing deals, then you're looking at proposals. How many proposals did you do? How many quotes did you do? Because if you're doing a lot of quotes and not closing the deals, then you know where your problem is. It's, again, a simple ratio. Do you track that? If you're not doing proposals, how many first appointments on new opportunities are you getting? Okay, because if you're having a lot of appointments and you're not closing deals, well, then that's maybe the problem. What's the sales process, or who are you talking to? If you're not getting first appointments on new opportunities, then how many contacts are you making, or how many leads are you getting, and where are those leads coming from? So these are the things that is important to track. So first of all, you know where you're getting stuck if you're not meeting your goals. And secondly, you know how efficient you are at these different stages, so you can see whether you're improving or not. Okay, but we can take a deeper dive into that when we meet and tomorrow. All right. Any questions?